Any questions from the discussion this morning?
Bhante?
Oh, yeah.
These 4 foundations, I guess there would be more explanation as you go along, right, Bhante?
The 4 foundations are going to be treated in more detail in the class, in the second part of the sutta that we'll come to next week.
All right. Next question, Bhante, about space, the 4 elements plus space,
Yeah.
5th element. In terms of normally when we do meditation, we see the form as the earth element, then the things like that. But when it comes to space, really, it's a difficult thing, Bhante.
Yeah, because the standard meditation subject is taught as the 4 primary elements. So I guess space comes in just... I actually have to admit I don't know how to use it in meditation, the space element. But the primary focus in the elements meditation is the 4 primary elements. I know that the PAOK system of meditation, PAOK Soyador, I think he uses all 5, uses the space element too.
Thank you.
Bhante, there's so much detail on the elements in Sutta number 115. So we should just take this as a subset or...
Oh yeah, 115, it uses the word elements, but then it includes many other things under the heading of elements.
Right.
Oh, I see. So taking the 4 or 5 elements as a subset of elements. Is that what you...
Because that is really expansive. There are I think 6, 7 classifications of elements in that sutta.
Yeah, because there are different groups of factors that are called dhatu, elements.
Right.
And those are included in 115. But usually when we speak about the elements, we mean either the 4 primary elements or the 6 elements or what's called the 18 elements, which are the 6 objects, 6 sense faculties, and 6 types of consciousness.
Yeah, I noticed that in the Visuddhimagga they explain the 32 parts. Over here they have only 31. They're excluding the brain here. I noticed that. But I noticed that in the Visuddhimagga it's a nice observation the way it was done here, because the way they broke it down was the first 20 would be earth, and the last 12 would be water, which is not mentioned in Visuddhimagga. It's pretty interesting, because when I saw it, when I read the Sutta, I was because I've been practicing the 32 parts, and it was actually pretty interesting, because I'm going into the 32 parts, and I was actually looking at the first earth, and then I go into the water.
But so what is not mentioned, you said?
What that is not mentioned, broken down into the first part, earth, and the second part, water.
Yeah.
I mean, it talks about the elements, but it doesn't go into detail like it did here. I mean, not detail, I meant to say, it doesn't break down the 2 parts of element, of water and earth. I looked it up. It was not in the Visuddhimagga. It explains the elements. It goes into saying, that's, going to the elements of...
Yeah, but now you see, in the Visuddhimagga, there are 2 sections which deal with the 31 parts of the body.
Right.
One of them is called the one... What's it called in the Visuddhimagga? So this is the meditation on the impurity of the body. Okay. So there the 31 parts are used as the contemplation in order to get the perception of the unattractive nature of the body.
Right.
That is that's called mindfulness directed to the body in the
body,
Visuddhimagga.
Right, that's the one I
But
read.
then there's another part of the section in the Visuddhimagga, chapter 11, which is the meditation on the elements, the analysis or contemplation of the four elements. And that again goes through the 31 parts. But there, the 31 parts are treated in terms of the elements,
Okay.
not in terms of the unattractive or impure nature.
But just the elements, right? Because
Yeah.
I noticed that in the first one, the one I read, it doesn't break it down, right? But it explains it in the beginning, but it doesn't go into detail of how to meditate on it.
Yeah, the one on the mindfulness directed to the body is treating the meditation in order to get the perception of impurity, or
the parts.
I think Jnanamoli calls it foulness.
Right.
But if you look at chapter 11, I think it's chapter 11. Yeah, chapter 11, there you'll see, again, the text goes through the 31 elements,
Okay.
but now they're treated in terms of the 31 parts, but here they're treated in terms of the elements.
Okay. Thanks. Oh. Oh, sorry. I didn't know you were right here.
Ante, I didn't quite get it when you explained the consciousness in paragraph 19, that it's purified and bright. You
Yeah.
say it's the consciousness of the fourth jhana, but if it's the consciousness of the first jhana, what follows is the feeling is pleasant, or
Yeah.
but in the fourth jhana there is no pleasant or painful feeling, only neutral feeling.
Yeah, but I think my idea is that the consciousness that's described as pure and bright is the consciousness of the fourth jhana, but then I think the idea here is that the meditator has come out of the jhana and is now contemplating the feelings, and then it sort of returns through contemplation of the feeling back to the fourth jhana. Okay, so the beginning of paragraph 19, there remains only that consciousness purified and bright. What does one cognize with that consciousness? Yeah, the way I would have to understand this is that the consciousness which is purified and bright, actually, maybe I'm wrong here, actually. It could be that the commentary is right and I have to defer to the commentary because he's been describing the contemplation of each of the elements, and detaching the mind from the elements. So it could be that the consciousness that's purified and bright is the consciousness that has gone through that insight contemplation on the elements. Yeah, that makes good sense. And then one goes from the consciousness, from the contemplation of the elements here to contemplation of feelings. So this is like going from a Kayanupassana, contemplation of the body, to a Vedananupassana, contemplation of feelings. And then it comes with the equanimity purified and bright, malleable, wieldy, and radiant. That seems to be the equanimity of the fourth jhana. Because the meditator then considers that he might direct this equanimity to the base of infinite space, infinite consciousness, and so on. And so those are the states of samadhi that lie beyond the fourth jhana.
So Bhante, a consciousness with insight can be bright and purified, and so is a consciousness with concentration. So to have a consciousness that is bright and purified, one could have two ways to obtain it. One is through insight, the other one is through...
It would seem so. Usually, purified and bright is used to describe the consciousness which has gone through the fourth jhana. For example, if you look at the standard sequence on the gradual training, for example, in Sutta number 120, Sutta number 27, okay, this is on page 275. So at the bottom, it describes the monk who enters and dwells in the fourth jhana, which has neither pain nor pleasure, and purity of mindfulness due to equanimity. Then the next paragraph, 23, says, when his concentrated mind is thus purified, bright, then unblemished, rid of imperfection, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attain to imperturbability. So here we have purified and bright being used to describe the mind in the fourth jhana. So that's why I thought when in Sutta number 140, when consciousness is described as purified and bright, to me it seemed to suggest the consciousness of the fourth jhana. But maybe the commentary is correct here, that it's the consciousness that has gone through the process of insight contemplation. Yes, please. Yeah, but please take the microphone.
I have a question about the sutra where the Buddha is recognizing that this man is an ex-king who has given up his throne to become more spiritual. It's almost as if mind is looking at mind. It's almost as if the Buddha is looking back into his past and present. So I was wondering if you might want to comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, well, the background of the Buddha, of course, is that, of course, the idea that the Buddha was a king in the past is part of the legend of the Buddha. Since the Sakyan state, it wasn't a monarchy, but it was an aristocratic republic. So the Buddha was from the aristocratic clan. And again, even the idea that Pukkusāti, the monk here, was formerly a king, this is commentary, it's not in the sutta itself. Yeah, so we have two if we just take the sutta level, we know nothing about the background of Pukkusāti, and the Buddha was an aristocrat, but not the son of a king. If we take legend or commentary, which is partly legendary, then Pukkusāti was a king, and the Buddha was the son of a king. Okay, any further questions? What is it? Yeah. You have another question? Okay. But smart students ask questions.
Bhante, what's the meaning of Bhante exactly? Because when you say the younger monk addressed the senior monk as Bhante, and my problem is with the Chinese rendering, because in Chinese I saw some rendered as 大德, means a person of great virtue.
Yeah.
But in Mahayana Buddhism, we use that term to address lay people. So I'm confused. Does Bhante have the meaning of like teacher, in the sense of a teacher, or
No, Bhante doesn't imply at all being in the position of a teacher.
so what's its meaning exactly?
The derivation,
Yeah.
I think it's not even settled what the meaning is, what the derivation is. I'm just wondering. Yeah, I don't know.
Does
Yeah, but Bhante is purely evocative, purely a word of address. Now monks sometimes use the word Bhante to say, oh, I want to introduce you to my friend Bhante Kondanyo, say. So it's used as though it's part of the name. Or monks call themselves like Bhante Gunaratana, as though this is the name. But originally, Bhante is evocative and address. When one person addresses somebody else, they'll call him Bhante. And originally it was used by the monks when they were addressing the Buddha, though sometimes I think that there are some places where a junior monk is addressing an elder monk, they'll call him Bhante. But what the origins, the derivation, that you can look in the Pali English dictionary.
that doesn't have any connotation of like great virtue at all?
Venerable sir or something.
What is that?
It says venerable sir.
That's the way it's
Yeah.
often rendered, venerable sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, ayasma is used as an honorific in front of a name. Or also sometimes ayasma is also used sometimes as evocative. So like ayasma Sariputta, the venerable Sariputta. Ayasma Anando, the venerable Ananda. There's a word Bhadanta. It seems to me that Bhadanta is used like to designate the venerable so-and-so, usually referring to an elder, a distinguished elder. Bhadanta. And I think but is from Bhadanta that one gets just as the vocative form, Bhante. Probably over a long period, the form was corrupted until you get Bhante. But you have to look up Bhadanta in the dictionary. Maybe Dada was just a term that the Chinese, that they weren't trying to, translate from the original, but just trying to convey, to use a term that had been in current usage to indicate respect for an elder, and to adopt it for the use of translating Buddhist texts. How about in the older texts you get Zhanglao, or is that just a modern development? Zhanglao.
For Terra.
What?
Zhanglao is the translation for Terra.
For Terra.
Yeah, Theravada, Terra.
Only for the Theravada elders.
No.
It's not used for the elder Chinese monks?
Yeah, I mean for the Pali word Terra. So could
But
be
I've heard
used-
it used for Chinese monks, like
Yeah,
Renjun.
yeah,
Venerable Renjun was called Zhanglao.
right.
So I see, but it's just the rendering for Terra or Stavira.
Elderly monk, maybe.
For elderly monk.
Oh, a monk in good 10 years standing or what.
Mhm.
Is there an established timeline? For instance, what dynasty is there when this?
Wait, speak.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah.
Is there an established timeline? Like, for instance, what dynasty are we speaking about in terms of historical perspective?
Which
not?
dynasty?
Chinese history.
That you have to ask. She's referring to the period when the Buddhist texts were translated from Indian languages into Chinese.
It's a process over 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at the very beginning, maybe
Buddha was a contemporary of which dynasty? Maybe that's what he wants to know.
contemporary.
In the sense that when the Buddha was born, which was the dynasty?
Oh, it's when the Buddha was born is in maybe in Zhou dynasty.
No, but texts weren't translated until
Maybe
much later.
4th century.
Yeah, 4th century, 5th
century
century.
of AD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bhante, just to set the context in this, when Buddha runs into Pukkusāti, I'm assuming he has an understanding that this is his level of realization.
Yeah.
And I want to help him beyond this,
Yeah.
which is where it becomes so important to understand that are these just contemplations of the elements and the feelings, or has he attained to the jhanas?
Or has he?
Or has he attained to the jhanas? Pukkusāti.
Pukkusāti.
Yeah.
The sutta itself doesn't say anything about his level of attainment.
Yeah.
Again, this is the information that's provided by the commentary. And the question that always occurs to my mind is, how does the commentary, the writer of the commentary know this?
That's true.
Did the Buddha say to some monk, well, Pukkusāti had reached this? Maybe that's possible, actually. Because, yeah, it's quite possible that the monks had asked, because at the end of the sutta, well, I don't want to give the ending away before we get there. No spoilers. But there's something at the end which indicates, but let us say that the Buddha himself would have known, because he has this ability to know the faculties, the degree of maturity of the faculties, the dispositions of other people. How the commentator got that information. Again, that's been something of a puzzle for me.
Because then we are understanding that it is possible to descend from the jhanas if your technique is not sound.
Is not
sound. If insight is not part of, your progress, it means you can descend from the jhanas.
Well, you see, if one reaches and masters the jhanas without developing insight,
yeah.
one will be reborn at a level that corresponds to that of the jhana. So it could be the level, if it's one of the 4 jhanas, then it will be in the form realm. If it's the formless meditations, the rebirth will be in the formless realms. And then one remains there for the lifespan within that realm, because the jhana generates or produces the karma that brings the rebirth there. But that karma is conditioned, and so that karma becomes exhausted. And when the karma becomes exhausted, then one falls
You
away
fall
from
back.
that realm. So that's one issue. The other issue is whether one who achieves the jhana can fall away from the jhana, while still within the human life. And that's possible
That's
too.
possible too.
unless one makes the effort to maintain it. If one becomes negligent and indulgent, self-indulgent, then one can fall away. Okay, we'll take one more question.
Yeah, I understand that Pukkusāti had already accomplished the fourth jhana already. I mean, he did already before he met the Buddha, right? But
Well, that's according to the commentary.
well, right. But now at the end, of course, given the spoiler, right?
Given...
Well, at the end, it states that, at the end of the sutta, it states that he became.
wait.
I get it. I mean, how could he have, he just took a lesson from the Buddha. How
Yeah.
could he have become, further just by listening? Of course, that you can. I've seen it many times in the suttas, but
Yeah.
he had not practiced, or at least say,
Yeah, I think...
meditated on the.
I would
on
say
insight.
that probably, I don't have a definite explanation for this either, but I would guess that as he's listening to the Buddha, he's
I know.
he's actually doing what the Buddha instructs with his
Okay,
mind.
That makes sense, yeah.
And so he is
Yeah.
developing those insights
All right.
along with the Buddha's verbal
I thought about that myself, yeah. Thanks.
Okay, I think we'll have to end for the day. Okay, so we'll end with the 3 half bows.